Hi there BookTube, it's Elena here. Today I'm coming back and making a bit of a sort of favourites video, things that I've been enjoying this month, but there's also a haul in here as well. So I thought I'd split it into different sections and talk to you about the things that I've liked and then the things that I've bought. So my favourite books of the month, and then books that I'm hauling, my favourite board games of the month and board games that I have bought to try, and things like that. So it's going to be a bit of a chilled one, and I thought I'd start with the books and then move into the other bits in case it's just the books that you're interested in. Okay, so over the last sort of 2 or 3 months, there's not been many 5-star reads for me. In fact, there might have only been one, and that 5-star read, no, there's been a few, there's been 2. One of the 5-star reads I couldn't talk about before because I was a judge for the first round of the BookTube prize, and I'm really enjoying being a judge on that. I've judged 2 rounds now. I'm doing the non-fiction category, which is definitely more my speed. I think the fiction category tends to be a bit more literary slanted, and that's definitely not really my thing. So I'm really pleased that in my category it forced me to pick up Know My Name by Chanel Miller. Actually, this was mine for the most recent round, and I just thought this was phenomenal. Chanel Miller was sexually assaulted after going to a party. Her sister was coming back from college, and her family lived in a town near the Stanford campus, and they were meeting one of her sister's friends and going to a fraternity sort of party. And they went to the party. Chanel drank quite a lot, and then the next thing she remembers is waking up in a hospital and trying to decipher what happened to her. It became quite a big thing. The trial became quite big. What had happened is Brock Turner had taken her behind the house near some sort of dumpsters, and 2 cyclists had come past and thought something was up. She wasn't moving. Brock Turner was lying on top of her and I believe sort of touching her. She didn't have any recollection of what was going on. She didn't know what was happening, and this is really more than just the story of this trial and this case that became really big. Chanel Miller kept her anonymity all the way through until she decided to come out and say who she was. And Brock Turner was given a very short sentence, especially considering the witnesses and various other things. There's been lots of books out there talking about sort of rape cases and going through the trial and the cases. What I thought this brought to the table even more was, I think, you know, I haven't been raped, and so I can't speak from personal experience. And so when I listen to a trial, it's very difficult to understand the victim and understand what they must be going through. You feel that sort of empathy, but having never been in that situation, I think we can never really understand. But Chanel Miller did such a good try, and she did a really great job of explaining to you what this was like, what her everyday life was like. You know, it's not just, oh, you know, she was raped, she had some trauma, she got over it, there was a trial, and then it ended. For her, this is never going to end. There's always going to be that thing there, and it had repercussions and ripple effects throughout everybody in her life. The fact that the case took so long meant that her sister, who was calling as a witness, was, you know, never sure when she was going to be called, and she was trying to do college, and that disrupted her life, and the feelings of guilt from people around her, and her feelings of guilt, and her feelings of not getting what she needed, her not be able to stay in the job that she was at, and changing the whole sort of choices that she was making in her career and her life. And I listened to this on audio whilst following along in the book, and it was read by Chanel Miller herself, and I just thought it was brilliantly written, very evocative, filled with little memories of her past. She's extremely eloquent. She read it beautifully. You could tell the emotion was there, and I just think it's a really important book, especially sort of delving into this idea that if a woman has had too much to drink, then she deserves what comes to her, or there is ever a reason, short skirts, drinking too much, that anybody should be able to do what they want just because of those things. yeah, I think it's a really important book that we need to keep hammering home, because I keep hearing these things when I watch trials or hear about them in the news, and I just think it's disgusting. You know, we all go out and drink too much and make mistakes, and yet that doesn't mean that I deserve to be raped because I've drunk too much. And as a mother of a child who one day will probably go out and drink too much, I just think, yeah, it fills me with dread, and I just think these conversations need to be had. So this was a definite 5-star. And then the other one, on a totally shift to something different, but non-fiction again, was Nadia Hussein's Finding My Voice. I am slightly obsessed with Nadia Hussein at the moment. I've watched her TV shows, I am cooking from her recipe books, more to come later on that, and I wanted to know more about her. And so I found out that she'd brought out a memoir last year called Finding My Voice. And I loved the idea of this because it's split up into all the different sort of things she sees herself as. So there's daughter, sister, granddaughter, wife, daughter-in-law, ma, earner, cook, username, woman. And she takes each of those chapters and talks about those parts of her life, those parts of her identity. And we learn a bit more about her life growing up. We learn about she had an arranged marriage, so we learn about that. We learn more about being a woman in this sort of male-dominated arena of TV chefs, and a little bit about the Bake Off and her family life. And we learn about her mental health problems and things that she's struggled with throughout her life. And she says it with all her wit and humour, and she's just so interesting to read about. She grew up not far down the road from me, which I thought was interesting, and I loved hearing about that. And I just was thoroughly engrossed in listening to this. And again, I listened to it on audio read by herself, which I just think makes it even better. The third book I want to touch on wasn't a 5-star read, but it was a strong 4-star read, and it's a self-published author, so I think it's important to talk about it. I wasn't sent it, I bought it myself online, and it's called Love's Recipe by Mila Nix. I hope that's how I say her name, maybe Mila, but I think it's Mila Nix. This was something that piqued my interest because I've become obsessed with fiction and non-fiction about food. I don't know why, I just find it very interesting, and this is a romance centred around sort of a restaurant, which I thought, yes please. And it centres around our main character Rosalie. And at the very beginning, she's 17 and she is leaving her mother and running off with this boy. And that's all we really know. We know that she doesn't have a good relationship with her mum. She's leaving, they have this fight, she goes and she leaves with him. And then we're skipping to years later. I think it's 7 years later, and she's having to come back home after shouting at her mum saying she'd never come back home. She's coming back home, she's left him, or he's left her. You find out more about that in the book, and that's not a spoiler. And she's bringing her 5-year-old daughter with her, Remy, and she's going to have to start again. She's got no money. And she gets a job in this restaurant called Addie's, which she remembers when she was younger that it was this Creole restaurant. She remembers being amazing, but it's not the same anymore. Addie, who owned it, has died, and she left it to her son, Nick, who in the last year has just been grieving for his mother and not been able to sort of do anything and basically run this restaurant into the ground. He's also a single father, and this is where we sort of learn about them both, relationship forms, and I really liked this. It wasn't heavy on the romance, but it was, well, the story was about the romance, but there was much more. It was about Rosalie discovering who she was and discovering that she could stand on her own 2 feet and how strong she could be, and thinking for herself and being determined and not letting anyone put her down all the time, and wanting something better for her daughter. And it's about the relationship that these two form, both in business and in a romantic sense. There's a few sort of smutty, steamy bits in there, but the majority of this is just, it's like a grown-up story about people forming full-on proper relationships, and I just really loved it. I'm definitely going to be keeping an eye out for the next book that this author brings out, and I definitely think it's one that's worth reading. Okay, so let's move on to the books that I'm hauling. I'm going to go quite quick because there's quite a lot. Quite a lot of romance in here. Not all of it's romance, but there's quite a bit. I picked up this one, To Love by Jason Thorne. by Ella Mays. This is the book about a boy and a girl. They have this terrible relationship. I think it's like her first ever crush, and then we skip years later, and this man, he's a man now, is going to be like the lead actor in her book adaptation, the movie, which is an adaptation of the book that she's written. So I think this is going to be fun, and it's about books, it's about movies. There's going to bound to be some romance and steamy stuff in there, so I think this is right up my street. I picked up Coming Up Roses, which is a romantic comedy by Stacey Hart. This is set in a florist. It's about a boy, brothers who come back to help their mum in the florist shop, and the girl works in the florist shop. There's a history between the two of them, or one of the brothers, and a romance in there somewhere maybe. I couldn't not pre-order this book. I really loved this author's first book. She's a booktuber. I think it's really important to support our own, and I did really love the first book, so I couldn't wait to pick this one up. And it is Lucy Powrie's The Paper and Heart Society, Book 2, Read with Pride. And I love the cover of this. I love that they've incorporated the first one in this. I'm not going to say much about this because I don't want to sort of spoil the first one, but the first one is about a girl. She goes to live with her grandmother for a while, and she becomes part of this book club, and it's about the friendship she forms there and things that have been going on in her life. From what I can gather with this one, it's sort of the start of a new school year, and there's a large LGBT element in there, so I'm looking forward to reading this. The next one I've heard is really hard-hitting and quite dark, but it's definitely something that I want to read, and I love Heather Demetrios's writing. This is Little Universes. This is about twin sisters, and their mother and father are in Malaysia, I believe, when a tsunami hits, and the girls have to sort of come to terms with the fact that they're not coming home, presumably because they are dead, and I think they go and live with their grandparents. They move from California to Boston, and each of them deals with what is going on in different ways, and I think there's quite a few dark elements in here. I think there might be some drug abuse and things like that, so I'm looking forward to getting stuck into this when I'm in the right mindset for something a bit heavier. The next book is by an author that I love. It is Holly Bourne. This is one of her adult books. It's called Pretending. This is about a girl, or a woman, sorry, who is struggling to meet the one. She goes on these dates, she dates people, but she doesn't seem to be able to keep a boyfriend and keep a man. And so she sets up an online dating profile named Gretel, and Gretel is this sort of manic pixie dream girl type girl. She obviously is lying and lies on her online dating profile, but through using this sort of persona she manages to meet a man, and then I'm sure we're going to see how sort of different things unravel and how she has feelings for this person, but she's sort of been lying to herself and to him. The next book I was very kindly sent, but I have no idea what this is about. So I'm going to show you it and read you what's written on the back of the copy, but I don't know, and I'm excited to try. It's by the best-selling author Candice Bushell, who wrote Sex and the City, and Katie Cotugno, and it says, rules for being a girl. Now she knows them, she can break them. And on the back it says, remember girls, put a little colour on your face, shave your legs, don't wear too much makeup, don't wear short skirts, don't distract the boys by having a body, don't be one of those girls who can't eat pizza, you're getting the milkshake too. Whoa, have you gained weight? Did you get so skinny your curves disappear? Don't get so skinny you aren't skinny. Don't get so curvy you aren't skinny. Don't take up too much space. Be funny but don't hog the spotlight. Be smart but you have to have a lot. Be smart, but you have a lot to learn. Don't be a doormat, but God, don't be too bossy. Be chill, be easygoing, act like one of the guys. Don't actually act like one of the guys. Be a feminist, support the sisterhood. Don't be easy, don't give up, don't be a prude, don't be cold, don't put him in the friend zone, don't act desperate, don't let things go too far, don't give him the wrong idea, don't blame him for trying, don't walk alone at night, be but calm down. Don't worry so much, you can do anything. You can be whatever you want, just don't forget to smile. So I think this is going to be a brilliant read, if anything on the back is to go by. I don't know what the actual story's about. I don't think it matters. I think it's going to be brilliant. Right, and the final book that I want to show you is actually something to do with the board game, so it'll be a nice little segue over to the board games. I picked up this book called Journal 29, and it's an interactive game book, and I'm really excited to give it a go. I've been doing a lot of a sort of escape style board games. I've been playing with Tracy from Flamingo Reads. Once a week we've been playing different games together. I've also been playing them on my own because you can play them solo. And this is a book which has lots of sort of different puzzles in, but also has these QR codes that you can sort of scan in. I don't know if that gives you the answer or how it works, but you work your way through the book. And I saw a review of this on the internet, and I just thought it sounded really interesting and something I can sort of sit and get my brain in gear with. So I'm looking forward to trying this out and seeing how I get on. Okay, let's talk a little bit about games that I've been really enjoying. One game that me and my daughter are absolutely obsessed with, oh, you can hear it, is Long Cow. This is by a company called Gamewright, and I just think this is super cool. Basically, the idea behind this is it's a card game, but you've got to create lots of different cows, and there's quite a few different breeds. You have to pick different cows up, and you can attack other people's cows and steal them. You can see there on the back there's a cow that's been put together by 3 different breeds. And the way of winning the game is you count up how many cards you've got out at the end, how many cows you've got laid down in front, and you can get some rosettes if you lay the first cow in the game, and if you have the most cows in your herd, and if you have the longest cow. And you add them up, you get your extra points for your rosettes, and then whoever's got the most wins. But we play about 6 or 7 games of this a day. I'd say it probably takes about 15 minutes, 10-15 minutes to play around, and we're absolutely loving it. So if you've got children, this is a really good game. A game that I've picked up that I've really enjoyed is another in the sort of board game escape rooms. I really love the unlock games, and I've got most of those now, so I've been playing those. But I wanted to branch out and try a few different brands. So I picked up this one called Deckscape Behind the Curtain, and the basic premise of this is it's a set of cards inside here, and you work through them one by one. So you have the pile in front of you, and you flip cards over as they tell you, and you don't look at any of the other cards, and you're working your way through this storyline. And in this one, on the front of a lot of the cards, it's got a little explanation of something, and then it asks you to work something out. It asks you a question like, how did this happen, or what's missing here, or how could you do this? And then when you think you know the answer, and sometimes you have to use some other cards that you've kept previous in the game, when you think you know the answer, you turn it over and it reveals if you're right or wrong. If you're wrong, you have to give yourself an X, and they get totted up at the end as sort of penalties. And if you've got it right, you sort of move forward. Well, you move forward anyway, but you don't give yourself an X, and then the story progresses. I really enjoyed how this worked, actually. I thought it was just going to be the set of cards, but then you sort of split them up halfway through, and then and the puzzles were doable. I could do them on my own. I think I didn't get like, oh yeah, you're a professional. I think there's like 4 levels you can get at the end, and I ended up on the 3rd one, so at least I wasn't the bottom. But you know, it was my first time playing it, and I really enjoyed it. I just thought it was really good fun. A game that me and Tracy played over a 3-day period on the bank holiday, which was brilliant. We played it for an hour each day. Was an adventure game. Now this isn't the one we played, this is the one we're going to do next. It's by a company called Cosmos. This one's called The Dungeon, but we played one called Monochrome Ink. And this is really good. It's more of an adventure game than a escape room, and I liked it because it was done in sort of 3 chapters, where you could just take a photo of where you were at and then start it another time. So it's sort of 3 hours to play the whole thing if you did it in one shot. But we liked spreading it out over 3 chapters. And you still have these cards and these areas to explore and putting cards together to do different things. But you're also these people in Monochrome Ink on this sort of heist, and you have to go to different places and get in lifts, and you have to work together and swap ideas and swap things together. And it was really good fun. It just totally hooked me, so I can't wait to start playing this one with her soon. Some games that I haven't tried yet, but I've heard are really great, so I have picked up some to try, are the Exit games. Exit sort of escape room style games. So I picked up the Forgotten Island, the Pharaoh's Tomb, and the House of Riddles. So I'm going to give these ones a go. I think these are have more sort of ciphers and codes, and it looks like on the back there's sort of more puzzle elements to it in the more sort of traditional sense. So I'm looking forward to seeing what I think of these ones and whether they hold up to sort of Unlock and Deckscape, which I really am quite taken with. Okay, you're going to think that I'm obsessed, and maybe I am, but who knows how long I'm going to be in lockdown for. So I've just been enjoying researching and picking up different things to try, so don't judge me. And I'm picking up things that are for solo players, because obviously I'm playing by myself. So this one I think is really interesting, and it is House of Danger, based on the book by R.A. Montgomery, A Choose Your Own Adventure. It's a cooperative adventure game, sort of a choose your own adventure one, which I think sounds brilliant. I've come to realise that I really like them when they've got a good story. So this says, can you survive the House of Danger? Gather your friends for a perilous and laughter-filled adventure through the House of Danger. Make risky choices, collect bizarre clues, and face mortal challenges. Play again and again to uncover more secrets and more exciting endings. Explore the story in 5 chapters. Make choices to reveal the mystery. Face challenges to collect clues and items. Escape danger to increase your abilities. So I don't know if you can see on the back there's the things that you can do. So I think this is going to be a fun one that I can sort of build on. And then the other one, which I haven't played this style of game before, but it's got great reviews on sort of board game sites and board game YouTube channels of people that are sort of in the know and know more about these sort of things. And it was one that I wanted to give a go. It's called Escape Tales: The Awakening. And the sort of story behind this is that you're a father and your daughter has been in this coma for a number of weeks and doesn't seem to be coming out of it, and you've decided you need to take drastic action to try and, you know, get her out of this coma. And so you go on this sort of adventure to try and help her. And from what I can gather from watching people talk about it and the back, you're exploring these different rooms, and it's going to be pretty much the sort of similar adventure story. It says open exploration. Each location is open. You're free to explore how you like. There's several ways to leave a location depending on your choices, which will impact the story. There's an engaging storyline. There's multiple endings, and there is replay value. It says you won't gain access to every puzzle and location in a single playthrough. Everything you do will impact the end result, which means you can play it more than once, which was an element that I was quite interested in, because with Unlock and Deckscape and Exit, they're sort of play once and then they're done. So although I don't begrudge paying the money for them, when you're paying £15 to £30 for something, it's quite nice to have maybe more than one go through on it. So I'm looking forward to trying this one out. A game that I've been loving playing with Matilda, which has been great for our brains and keeping our brains going, is this one. It's called Jungle Hide and Seek. I love this company that make these. It's Smart Games, and they're really good for children, and they do all sorts of different age ranges. We've got 2 of these now, but I think this is fast becoming my firm favourite. So basically you've got this one, you've got 2 sides to this sort of pack, but I'm just lifting it up like this because it's easier. And as you can see, there's different animals on here, and you have 4 Tetris style pieces. And you can see when you put them into different places, they cover up different animals, and you've got 4 sections, and you come with a little book and you work your way through it. So start with the basic ones. So the very first one they ask you to do is to cover up all the animals apart from 4 elephants. So you have to work out how to put the 4 puzzle pieces in so that only 4 elephants are showing. And then likewise there's another book, which is the nighttime book, and if you flip over this, you can see that this is the same idea, but there's no spaces, so it makes it even more tricky. So I'm really loving doing this with Matilda. We do sort of a couple, 2 or 3 levels a day, and we really get stuck in and like fight about where we're going to put the pieces. And it really just keeps our brain going, and it gets us thinking about different things. And it will take a long time to get through this one. And as I say, if you're sort of more expert at these sort of things, there's loads and loads and loads of different themed ones on this company's website. Okay, so there's 2 more things I want to talk about. One is my hands are becoming ridiculously dry. I've really been struggling. I'm washing my hands a lot, and I'm doing a lot more cooking, which means you wash your hands loads while you're doing cooking as well. And obviously with the current situation, we're washing our hands. So I wanted to get myself a moisturiser, and I'd heard that this Norwegian formula was meant to be really good, but I find that moisturiser on my hands get really greasy and I just don't like the feel of them. But I'd heard this one was good, and I'm loving it. It's Neutrogena Neutrogena Norwegian Formula Fast Absorbing Hand Cream Light Texture. I don't know if you can see it there, and it's just been working wonders for my hands. It's made them soft, and I've only had it for 2 days. I'm really loving it, so I definitely recommend this. This is one of my favourites at the moment. And the other favourite, I have talked about this I think before, is Nadia Hussein. I'm loving Nadia's cookbooks. I've got both of them. This one is the one that I've cooked the most from so far, and it's based on her TV series for the BBC called Time to Eat. You can see that it's marked up lots. My favourite, well, my husband's favourite so far is this olive and rosemary crown. If you've been watching me and follow me on Instagram, you'll see I posted a photo of my attempt at this, which I'll endeavour to put up here for you to see. But it's an olive and rosemary crown. It's a bread that you make where you put in blue cheese and olive tapenade, and oh, it is rich, but it is delicious. And another bread from this book that is so easy to make and that I've been loving is the Spotted Dick soda bread, which is so delicious, and it's really nice as sort of more of a snack with some butter on. It's really nice. I've also made the paneer pitta from here, which is really tasty as well, and the catty rolls, which are lovely, which are sort of tortillas with egg, cooked with egg, which are lovely. I've made the apple palm pies, which my husband said are just like little mini apple strudels. They didn't last very long at all. And my husband loves tiramisu, and so I did make the grapefruit tiramisu in here, which we were a bit dubious about, but I don't drink coffee because I'm not allowed caffeine, and this doesn't have coffee in, which tiramisu normally does, and it was really nice. It wasn't necessarily my favourite, but my husband wolfed it down and said it was lovely, so that's got to be a bonus, hasn't it? So this is a book that I have just been loving, so I definitely recommend it if you like baking, but maybe you're like me and you're not an expert baker, and especially with things like bread you get a bit nervous. This is really good, and it doesn't involve any of those sort of difficult to find ingredients, and nothing is too time consuming. The whole point of this is that she doesn't sort of make you make things from scratch. You can use a tin of spaghetti hoops. You can use your own sort of, you can use a mix that's already pre-mixed. And I just think that's really important, especially at the moment when it's hard to get hold of things. I just really enjoyed it, so I'm enjoying this very much. So yeah, that's some of the things that I've been loving. I've waffled quite a bit, but I've been loving all of these different things, especially romance reading at the moment. I think that's definitely got me hooked, and definitely these games. I want to play them all the time, and poor old Tracy, who is my partner in crime. My husband Jamie will play with me sometimes, but they're not necessarily his thing, so he kind of does it to be nice to me. But I'm trying to play them by myself a couple of times a week. I play with Tracy once a week, and my husband will occasionally play with me like once every month or something. So yeah, that's what I've been reading, my 5-star reads. What have you been doing? What have you been reading? What have you been watching? Or yeah, let me know, and I look forward to chatting to you soon. Bye for now, BookTube.